Shawn Marion was one of the most versatile, dynamic players the NBA has ever seen. His style of play was very unorthodox, but not in a bad way. In his prime, he would always stuff the stat sheet like crazy, give you like 20 points, over 10 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and shoot a very high efficiency. But he did all of this while only being listed at 6'7". He was never a true small forward, nor was he a true big man, but he would always play bigger than his heights, yet also moved just as quickly as other wing players and guards. A true anomaly in basketball history and one of the most athletic players ever. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today let's take a look at Shawn Marion. How good was he actually, and what was his primary role for most of his career? To start things off, Shawn Marion was drafted in 1999 with the 9th overall pick after a great year at Las Vegas. The 1999 NBA draft isn't talked about much, but it was a very underrated draft class with 9 different players eventually becoming All-Stars. Coming in, Marion was described by scouts as being an extremely active player, with a relentless motor on both ends of the floor, incredibly versatile, can play multiple positions, and a lethal scorer in transition. Those projections turned out to be quite accurate. His almost bionic athleticism earned him the nickname The Matrix, from Kenny Smith on TNT. However, overall, his offensive game needed a bit of time to develop, and he was probably never going to be a good ball handler or playmaker. With that being said, getting drafted by the Suns was the best situation he could have hoped for. At the time, the Suns were led by Jason Kidd, Penny Hardaway, and Cliff Robinson, 3 players who would dominate almost every possession. Marion really didn't have any pressure to be a playmaker because they already had great ones on their team. So in his rookie season, he played very freely with no plays called for him, and just focused on filling the gaps and doing all the dirty work the team needed. This is basically the role that Marion would play for the rest of his career, but he played this role at an all-star level. In the previous season, before Marion got drafted, the Suns were 19th in the league in defensive efficiency. But with a rookie Marion, they were now 3rd in defensive efficiency. That's incredible, although the Suns did make a few other roster changes that also boosted their defense. It wasn't just Marion, but he had a huge part in helping them become a defensive-minded team. Marion's rookie season went well as he made the all-rookie second team. Besides a hilarious moment where he ran across the court and almost scored on his own basket, it was a great rookie season. He averaged about 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 block a game in 25 minutes. The Suns would win 53 games, but then get knocked out in the second round. Moving on to his sophomore season, Marion made a huge leap. He was now the full-time starting small forward on the Suns and became the leading scorer on the team. This was the time when he became known as a stat sheet stuffer. He would average about 17 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.7 steals, 1.4 blocks, while only committing fewer than 2 turnovers a game. He had a high field goal percentage and a high free throw percentage. And for everyone who played fantasy basketball back in the day, Marion would always be like a top 3 pick, especially by the mid-2000s. Anyway, the 22-year-old Marion would help the Suns win 51 games, but then they would lose in the first round. Afterwards, the Suns overhauled the roster and pretty much the entire team got a complete makeover. Over the next few years, a bunch of new players came on board like Stephon Marbury and a young Amari Stoudemire. Until 2004, the Suns would try to compete but would usually end up as a low seed or miss the playoffs entirely. Marion himself, though, was still balling. In 2003, he would make his first ever All-Star game and develop a legit 3-point shot. He was now shooting over 4 threes a game on a near 39% clip. In a matter of just one off-season, he became the best 3-point shooter on his own team. That's very impressive considering he shot the ball like a T-Rex. By 2004, the roster saw another significant change. After Stephon Marbury wasn't getting them anywhere, the Suns gave Steve Nash an offer, which he accepted. The Suns saw one of the biggest turnarounds ever as they went from a 29-win team to a 62-win team, and one of the frontrunners to win the championship. The Suns now sported a new big 3 of Nash, Stoudemire, and Marion. The Nash era was known for its super high-paced offensive firepower, and Marion greatly benefited from this style of play. He was the perfect fit in Mike D'Antoni's offensive scheme and also shifted from the small forward to the power forward position. This new small ball lineup took a while to get going, but Marion was super confident in himself that he could defend legit power forwards. In an interview, he recalled the difference between defending power forwards back then compared to the ones today. "I told somebody the other day, when I was playing power forward back in the day, I was really guarding power forwards. The game is different now. All those guys that were power forwards, they try to dunk on you and put you in the baskets. Now they play face up, so you can be undersized and guard those fours, because they're not trying to bang you. I was guarding Hall of Famers and I was giving them work. That's what made it exciting for me." A common criticism of Marion's game was that he was always a complementary piece and was at the right place at the right time. Without Nash, would he have been the same player? Well, the answer to that is yes, because he was already an all-star before Nash even got there. But with Nash, both of their games elevated even further. They complemented each other very well and made each other better. This applies to Stoudemire as well. Both Nash and Stoudemire were incredible offensive players, but they needed somebody to pick up the slack on defense. That's where Marion came in, and he would defend everybody from guards to centers, whatever the team needed. Despite being known as a team that gives up a lot of points, the Suns were actually middle of the pack in defensive rating, and that's a huge credit to how impactful Marion was. In my opinion, Marion is the greatest defender who never made a single all-defensive team, not a first team or second team all-defense in his entire career. Honestly, playing for the Suns hurt his defensive reputation even though he was anchoring the defense for so many years. The 2005-06 season was his best individual season from a statistical standpoint. He averaged a career-high 21.8 points a game, a career-high 11.8 rebounds a game, and a career-high 1.7 blocks a game, and the highest field goal percentage of his career. The man was the definition of a stat sheet stuffer. Unfortunately, after a couple years of losing in the conference finals, the Suns figure that, it's time for a change. Over the years, they've been having trouble against teams like the Spurs and Mavs, who both have dominant big men. Stoudemire was great in his own right, but he could not handle either of them on defense. Marion was too small to guard them all the time, and they wanted somebody bigger. That's when they struck a deal with the Miami Heat in a trade that sent Marion to Miami for Shaquille O'Neal. Now, at first, the Suns were very unsure of pulling the trigger because trading away Marion would be a huge loss and completely overhaul the identity of the team. In the next few years with Shaq, they would still play at a very fast pace, the fourth highest pace in the league. But Shaq was getting old at this point, and the Suns were still not able to get past the Spurs until 2010, which was after he was gone. As for Marion, he had a short stint in Miami and then another short stint in Toronto. In the 2009 offseason, he would sign with the Dallas Mavericks. He would spend his twilight years in Dallas and became a major piece in helping them win the 2011 championship. While not as fast or agile as before, Marion still played a key role defensively, as he was the main guy defending LeBron James. The 2011 Dallas Mavericks had some great veteran players with decorated careers, yet none of them have ever won the championship. That's what makes that team so special. But even at an older age, Marion continued to add more elements to his game. Although being known mainly as a transition or pick-and-roll player, in Dallas he became quite a good post-up player. He incorporated some floaters and baby hooks, which were put on full display in the finals. During the finals, LeBron James stated, "He's picked up his game offensively, hanging around the rim, getting some layups, getting some tip-backs. I take it upon myself to not only lock in at the beginning, but whoever is on him to lock in a little bit more." Marion would spend the last season of his career in Cleveland, riding out the bench and not really playing at all in the playoffs. It was a bittersweet moment, and he felt like he could have still contributed to that team, especially with all their injuries. But that would be it. Marion quietly retired at the age of 37. So how good was he actually? In some years of his prime, he was a borderline top 10 player. He was arguably the second most important player on those Suns teams, even though he never got the same credit as Nash or Stoudemire. For a guy who's 6'7", 220 pounds, he was very undersized as a power forward, especially during his era where power forwards were almost as big as centers. Marion's sheer athleticism and motor separated him from his peers, and his ability to adapt from a fast-paced Suns team to a slower Mavs team shows just how versatile he was. He finished his NBA career as a 4-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, and a champion. Over 17,000 points, over 10,000 rebounds, over 2,000 assists, 1,000 steals, 1,000 blocks. He did everything. Maybe not a Hall of Fame career, but definitely a great one. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Shawn Marion. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.